It's time for the Kim Hammer Show, where you'll learn how your state government affects you, your family, and community. Here's Kim Hammer.
Good Saturday afternoon. Hope you're having a great Saturday, and thank you for joining me here on the Kim Hammer Show. As always, remind you, if you want to check out any of the current events that are going on that we get posted up on our website, or you want to see this again, you can go up to the website at the www.thekimhammershow.com, www.thekimhammershow.com. And if everything works out right, next weekend, I think, is the weekend that we're going to have the gentleman from Wisconsin that Clint Lancaster talked about last week, with the final report coming out maybe the week after next, but just kind of stay tuned for that. That'll be coming. I think that'll be interesting to see what all they found in the investigation up there that's factual and not speculation. Today, though, I've got Jerry Cox on the show, on the Kim Hammer Show. Thank you, Jerry, for joining me here today.
Hey, it's always my pleasure to be on the show with you, Kim.
Hey, a shameless plug before we go any further. Monday night, if you're not doing anything and you're in the Benton area, I'm going to have a meet and greet. I'm going to have actually Representative Lanny Fight is going to be there with me. I'm going to have Senator Matt Pitch is actually going to be down there with me. We're going to be at ACDI. That's in the downtown Benton area. You can't miss it if you come in on any of the main thoroughfares there. Just circle the block. You'll see ACDI there. We're going to meet from 5:30 to 6:30. Just opportunity for you to come by and visit, and we'd love for you to drop by for just a few minutes and give us a chance to meet you or visit with you, or you can bend our ear for all you want. We probably will say something around 6 o'clock, but I promise you it'll be somewhere between 0 and a devotion. It will not be long. Mainly, we just want to get a chance to meet you and give you an opportunity to come out. That'll be Monday night, 5:30 to 6:30 at ACDI there in Benton. Would love to see you. All right, Jerry. Good to have you on the show today. And
it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, pleasure to be anywhere. After this week, it's a pleasure to be anywhere.
Hey, we survived.
We survived. That's right. We survived. Hey, what I wanted to do today, and this is not my method is not to attack anybody. So I'm not wanting anything derogatory. That's not what this is all about. But I thought what might be good is, just for the benefit of everybody that's kind of been watching what's going on this week in the Senate and in the House and the Legislature, at the Capitol, would be for us just to let's start in January.
Okay.
And let's just walk it all the way through to where we are, so that people can understand some of the dynamics of what's been going on up to this point. And pro-life is the topic.
Right.
We're going to tail off on a few other things, but primarily this is all about the pro-life legislation that's been presented to be run. So go back to January. We were in the general session back in January. We took up. I'm trying to remember if we took up pro-life bills. It was not anything of the Texas style bill.
Right. That's right.
At that time, when we were in the general session, what was the litigation that you remember that was going on based on the Texas style bill, but also based on the Mississippi bill that really is not the one getting talked about?
Well, yes, Kim, you're exactly right. The most important pro-life decision by the U.S. Supreme Court has been brewing for a couple of years now, and it centers around a law that Mississippi passed back in, I want to say maybe around 2017. It's been a few years.
Yeah.
And it bans abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy.
Which is the Dobbs bill.
That's called the Dobbs bill. And it's the case is Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health is the name of the case. And that case went all the way. It's all the way to the Supreme Court. And so this past December, the Supreme Court conducted what's called oral arguments on that particular abortion bill. And that just means that the lawyers on both sides stood in front of the court and they made their case. I was in Washington, D.C. on the day that they did the oral arguments. Now, I wasn't at the court, but people came out of that court that day and they said, I believe Roe v. Wade is going to be reversed. That's what the smart lawyers that I look at and talk to and visit with, they all said, I think it's going to be reversed. And I was shocked. I had no idea that we were that far along, that they would actually be about to maybe reverse Roe v. Wade. Now, a lot of people think if Roe is reversed, Kim, that somehow that's going to make abortion illegal throughout the whole country. You and I know that's not true. It just means that every state will make its own abortion laws. And so if Roe is reversed, then all the pro-life laws that Arkansas has passed that have been enjoined by the courts or struck down, they'll all come to life. They will all be in play. And Kim, you guys at the legislature have done such a good job. You're probably the most pro-life legislature in the country. Arkansas is the most pro-life state in the country. And in Arkansas, our laws are really good, way better than Texas and a lot of other places, because we have a law that says abortion is illegal except to save the life of the mother. You can't make a law any stronger than that, really, that I know of. And so all we're waiting for now is for Roe to be reversed and the good law that you all passed last year to go into effect. That's what we're waiting on.
So what would have been the wisdom, in your opinion, to run the bill during the general session as opposed to waiting till later? Why was the timing not right to run it during the general session?
Are you talking about a Texas-style bill or which one?
Well, we could run the Texas-style bill, or we could have run the Dobbs bill or counterpart to it, right?
Right.
So
right.
What would have been the wisdom, in your opinion, as far as we would run either one of those during the general session, or given all that was in play at the court, in the court system at the time? Because we're in a different, one thing people need to remember, we're in the Eighth Circuit, they're in the Fifth Circuit down there.
Right.
Totally different set of judges you deal with.
Yeah, a different one. Well, first of all, it really would not have served any purpose for the long-term pro-life movement for Arkansas to just copy what Mississippi has done. It wouldn't have really served much purpose. And here's why. Arkansas passed a ban on abortions after the 18th week. And it's a good law, but it's been enjoined. And so what we need to do, I believe, here in Arkansas is, now that we are on the threshold of maybe Roe v. Wade being reversed, and I'm all for the law that y'all passed a year ago, because it just says abortion's illegal in Arkansas except to save the life of the mother. Now, it's been enjoined, but you and I know if Roe is reversed, then that law comes to life. We got a real strong law right there. Texas and these other states don't have a law that strong. So they're celebrating their heartbeat bill and all that kind of stuff. We have a law that just says abortions are illegal if Roe is reversed, and I believe it will be. And so you all did the right thing a year ago when you ran a bill and passed it that says abortions are illegal in Arkansas except to save the life of the mother. Now, it got immediately stopped in federal court, but all we're waiting for now is for the federal court, the Supreme Court, to say, you know what, states can make their own abortion laws. And guess what? That good law that you all passed will come to life, and our attorney general will go out and they will defend it, and I think it'll be enforced. And that could happen as early as maybe this summer.
The with the Texas bill being in court, one thing I meant to ask was, we use, we're kind of familiar with terminology, but maybe the listening audience isn't. But when we speak of being enjoined, any law that we would pass, the probability of it, at least because of where we are, all these bills seemingly go before Judge Baker, and in looking at that, some of that is, maybe the other judges have recused themselves. Typically, as I understand it, if you have a history or from the beginning you began to deal with certain subject matter bills, they automatically go. That's the that is the privilege of the judiciary branch, that that's how they structure it. That's how they.
You are correct. And Judge Baker has stopped every abortion restriction that has ever come in front of her at the federal court level here. Now, some of those have been appealed to the Eighth Circuit. Some have been overturned, but here's the different situation that we are in right now here in Arkansas. And I know this may be a little bit hard for people to follow, but now that see, used to we would pass pro-life laws and we just throw things against the wall and hope that something would stick. And most of those laws were stopped. They were enjoined in the federal courts. And we say, well, we fought the good fight. We tried. But now that Roe v. Wade is about to be overturned, and we have a real good law already, the best law I believe you could pass, already done. It's just sitting there ready to go. We don't need to complicate the legal landscape by passing additional pro-life laws at this time. And Kim, I want to double underline the words "at this time," and I think you understand why. It's because the courts then will say, "Well, what law did y'all pass most recently?" Well, we passed the Texas type bill, and well, okay, I'm afraid some federal judge may find a backdoor way to keep abortion going in Arkansas based on legislation that you all might pass now, for example, that might undermine the good law that we already have. And so that's one of the problems that we're facing is trying to help people understand we all want to end abortion. I think we may be very close to that, but if we keep doing things, we're liable to mess it up.
Well, and that was one thing I want to mention. When you say the word enjoined, that word means, for the benefit of those who don't know,
the law will not be enforced.
Okay.
It's not going to be enforced.
Okay.
And that's what happened to the total ban on abortions. We said abortions are illegal except to save the life of the mother. And Judge Baker said this law is enjoined. We are not going to enforce that law. Then it went to the Eighth Circuit, and they're going to chew on it for who knows how long. And the same thing is true with all the other laws that have been challenged. Now, here's something that a lot of people don't know. People say, well, let's pass a Texas type bill right now, and, we'll see what happens. I can tell you what's going to happen. It'll go to somebody like Judge Baker. She will enjoin it. It'll be appealed to the Eighth Circuit. And you know what the Eighth Circuit has said? We're not dealing with any more abortion laws until the Dobbs case is handed down.
They're going to sit on it.
And they're going to sit on it until summer. And so it's not going to have the effect in Arkansas that it did in Texas. This is not Texas. We're not in the same judicial circuit. Our courts are different. Our laws are different. And the best attorneys I've talked to around the country and here all say that it's not going to do in Arkansas what it did in Texas if you pass the very same law.
As far as strategy, when it comes to passing laws, we are fortunate that we've gotten as many laws through as we have. You've sent out a letter earlier that actually listed all the bills that we got through.
44 pro-life laws in the last 10 years.
And then of those 44, some are still tied up in court. I've got one.
Yeah,
I might have two. I've got one or two tied up in court.
The good ones, I say that there's some good ones that weren't tied up, but some are tied up.
And because they are tied up, probably, I'm speculating here, that until the Supreme Court rules, do you see any movement? Would you care to guess that there are going to be any movement on those that are tied up?
None. Zero.
Because they would have moved by now.
Not any. I mean, I talked to the Attorney General's attorneys this week, and they said the Eighth Circuit has put on pause all of the work on these laws, on these abortion laws, waiting for a U.S. Supreme Court decision in this Mississippi case that could overturn Roe v. Wade or dial it back. Because think about it, Kim, there's no need for them to do a bunch of rulings on these based on the old precedent in Planned Parenthood v. Casey and some of those old cases, if there's fixing to be a brand new case that sets a brand new standard or overturns Roe.
And the thing is, and in battling for pro-life, it has been a chess game.
Right.
And we're about in a position for a checkmate.
We are.
And in playing chess, you strategically move, and sometimes you give up in order to gain.
That's correct.
And one of the things that I think about of all the bills that we have passed that have gotten us to the point that
Mhm.
we are as far as being the number one pro-life state
Right.
is that if they return the right to the states
Mhm.
with the bill that we already have on it, a lot of those other good bills that we did really become mute
They
themselves.
do.
Even if they are already in law, there will be the value for them will have diminished over the bill that is sitting there that's going to do away with it altogether.
If you've made it totally illegal, then you don't need a parental consent law for a minor to get an abortion, do you? Because abortion is illegal.
Right. And you don't need the bill, such as one that's tied up. I passed a bill, and the idea behind the bill was this: you treat fetal remains the same
Right.
way you would treat a
Mhm.
person that dies in the hospital that's 70 years old. That would put the responsibility on the abortion clinic to have to be the expense. And that all stemmed from when we found out that what they were doing with fetal remains is putting it in with medical waste
Yeah.
and just
Right.
hauling it out like
Right.
trash.
That's correct. That's correct. That's a good law. Good
Yep.
law.
Right. Well, and hopefully it'd be a financial burden on 'em. And really that's part of the
Mhm.
strategy is make it so expensive for them to do business
Mhm.
that they can't afford to operate.
Yeah, all of our nibbling around the edges and incrementalism may not even be a factor anymore if you just make abortion illegal, which
Right.
I believe we are all trying real hard to do. And so my concern is that lawmakers, in their zeal and in their intended attitudes, may pass some additional legislation between now and that decision that would muddy the water and actually give the ACLU and Planned Parenthood a tool to attack our good law with and change the legal interpretation of, well, is abortion legal or illegal in Arkansas? Right now, I believe it would be illegal, but if we keep messing with it, it's liable to mess it up.
Well, and one of the concerns is that we have a sense of direction in which the Supreme Court is going to go.
Correct.
And if there was something to be passed that did make it through the court system that got added to the caseload,
Mhm.
some of the concern is that it may change the direction that the Supreme Court is going
Correct.
based on something new being interjected.
That's correct. That is correct.
Okay.
And we just need to exercise patience, prudence, and just wait a little bit. Because I told the legislators the other day, I said, you guys have done your part. And Kim, you all have done your part. You've made abortion illegal. I never thought I would live to see the day. I sat in the gallery of the Senate last year, and I heard the title of that bill read that says, "A bill to ban abortions in Arkansas or prohibit abortions in Arkansas." And that bill passed, and I never thought I'd live to see the day. My concern is that things may be done now that will cloud the legal battle over this to see it actually enforced if Roe is reversed, and we may actually lose some ground, and I don't want to do that.
So we had the general session last year where we passed a few. Then we come into a special session, the attempt to pass the legislation then, which it failed.
Mhm.
And now we're in the fiscal session. And I think one thing I would like people to know is a little bit about the flow of how things work. And I'm going to speak to the Senate side because that's the side that I'm on. But at the beginning of the fiscal session by rule, any resolution that's going to be considered or taken up for consideration has to be introduced on the first day, period. And so I think there were 19, I may be off on that, 19 resolutions. 8 or 9 of them were dealing with EBD.
Mhm.
And one thing that, people need to know too is there has to be relevancy as to the bills, the resolutions that are introduced as far as it tying into the fiscal session. So there were EBD bills, Employee Benefit Division, take care of the teachers and the state employees on their insurance. Those bills were part of the package that were there. And then there were a series of other pro-life bills that were there. And off the top of my head, I think there was a total of 5, maybe 6 of those. And then there are a few sitting out there that have not been, that have not even been taken up yet.
Mhm.
And the reason I want to do this is because I want people to understand as far as this session, the logistics and the flow of things to know how we got to where we are, and then we'll get back about the pro-life bills. So anyway, the first day of the session, you have to file the resolutions that are going to be considered or taken up or put before the body to be considered to be taken up. And when it came down to the pro-life legislation and the resolutions that were going to be considered, that's where the debate occurred.
Correct.
And if a resolution is not passed out of the chamber with 2/3 vote, that it's not going anywhere.
Correct.
At that point, the Lieutenant Governor is presiding over the Senate when it came to the pro-life legislation and those resolutions that were being introduced. What you do at that time is you don't really debate the bill, even though the bill is included in the resolution.
That's right.
But you got to talk about it a little bit to give people an idea. There was some latitude that was given when it came to the pro-life bills, but the end result was the resolutions failed to get the 2/3.
That's correct.
So my position on it was that if they did get out of the chamber, at least, and there were mirrored bills as well. Go ahead.
Well, no, you're doing great. I think people who are listening and following this understand that this process is more complicated than it would be during a general session where you just file a bill and it goes to a committee and all that, because the budget session is supposed to be about budget,
fiscal matters.
Right. And to do anything else, you can, but it requires a 2/3 vote in each house on that resolution to bring that measure up. And part of the reason for that, Kim, is a lot of people were afraid the budget session would morph into another general session. And I think people said, we don't want the legislature in town every year. Every other year is good enough. And
for subject matter bills.
That's right. And so come back, do the budget, be here 3 weeks and go home. If it morphs into a miniature general session, that could be an issue that people are concerned about.
Right. With the resolution being introduced, I will tell you the reason I voted the way I did, which was to allow the resolution to be taken up. Let me say this: Senator Stubblefield had 2 bills, Senator Rapert had a bill, Senator Flippo had a bill. I think that was it, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, there were 5. All right. So Senator Stubblefield's bills were brought up for consideration. When we come back from the break, here's what I want you to be thinking about.
All right.
My thought process was, let's get them out of here because they're resolutions. You can't have a full-blown discussion on the floor about the content of what's inside the resolution, which are those bills. My thought process was, we have the privilege of having an hour-long discussion like this, and we're talking. There are others that are involved in the discussion, from the pregnancy centers to Right to Life, both state, national level. You got a lot of outside interests that are thrown into this. Part of my thought process was that we would at least get it into committee and have that open air debate to where all this that we're talking about could have been heard in a public format, live streamed, and everybody be able to weigh in on it. I'm going to go out here on a limb and tell you this, and then we're going to take a break. I wouldn't have voted for the bill. I would have voted for it to be heard. I would have voted for it to have this airing out so that everybody could see it. It'd be a matter of recorded record then, but I would not have voted for the bill for the reasons that we're talking about. When we come back, what I'd like to ask you is what you think about the thought process of it stopping on the floor versus going to committee.
Good.
When we come back. All right, this is Kim Hammer Show. You go up to the website at www.thekimhammershow.com and pick up on current information that we put up there, interesting articles, and I appreciate Elizabeth doing that for me. You can follow on the KimHammerShow.com. We'll come back here after the break to the Kim Hammer Show. All right, back to the Kim Hammer Show. This is Kim Hammer, host of the Kim Hammer Show. We've got Jerry Cox with Family Counsel in here. Jerry, I left you with a question or something to think about before the break. This is the one thing I want to say, though, and I want everybody to hear and to understand. We are the most pro-life state in the nation. We got there through strong debate. We didn't get there with everybody's approval either, for that matter. This has been truly iron sharpening iron experience getting here. I appreciate the fact we can sit across the table from each other and have a debate that we may not necessarily agree on everything.
Sure.
But the one thing we agree on is we want to see abortion stopped.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, Kim, I appreciate your attitude about this, because sometimes people get the attitude there's only one way to fight the fight, and they exclude everything else. And it's like, well, there are multiple approaches to ending abortion in Arkansas. We all need to be respectful of one another and do the best that we can. And I believe we've done a pretty good job of that up until just recently, and then it's been kind of bumpy.
Well, it's been bumpy. The one thing that I think we need to throw in the mix of the conversation too is that when you have strong opinions, you have strong beliefs, and you are trying to get to the same destination, that you're not always going to agree on how to get there.
Right. Well, and here's where you and I probably would disagree a little bit. I have said before, I said things are different right now than they've ever been, because the U.S. Supreme Court may be just about to overturn Roe versus Wade and let the states make their own abortion laws. Arkansas has already made as good a law as you can make. Abortion is illegal except to save the life of the mother. With that said, that law is just sitting there waiting for Roe v. Wade to be overturned, and then it will go into effect. Now, if we do any more, that can make it harder for the Attorney General to get that law enforced, because there will be other cases that'll muddy the water. So that's why we have said, let's not do any more abortion-related bills right now. And so when it came up at the legislature for us to bring some bills up and have some more debate, maybe pass a Texas type law and all that, we consulted with, I think it was altogether, I heard from about 16 pro-life attorneys around the country here in Arkansas. And I believe around 14 of them said, you know what? We really don't need to do any more right now. We need to wait until this summer when this Supreme Court decision comes down that might overturn Roe. And then after we see that, then let's go forward. So when people said, let's bring up some more abortion bills, we said, wait, time out. These may be really good ideas, but we won't know if they're a real good idea until summer. That was where we came down. We won't know if it's a good idea until summer. And if we pass it now, it could mess things up.
One thing, and
that's been our position.
Sure. And I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you on that. What I think the disagreement among some is, do you want to stop it on the floor?
Right.
Before it even gets to committee to be debated?
Right.
And I think some of the fear might be is, well, then it would move to the next step and eventually it would go. Whether you agree or disagree. And that's part of what I want to have today is just dialogue about the process and about, the 100,000-foot view picture of it. Okay. So, and some of us, at least speaking for my part, felt that it should have got at least into a situation to where it could have had that public comment. It would have been sent to public health, which I sit on public health, and so do a lot of other great people.
Right.
So we disagree. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And stabbing each other, attacking each other from this point forward doesn't necessarily advance the cause.
Well, and Kim, I would never say that somehow you're not pro-life, and you would never say that somehow I'm not really pro-life, just because we might not agree on that one procedural part of it.
And it's procedural.
Yeah. And so we'll go out of here best of friends, and we'll work and we'll fight the bad guys every step of the way.
one disadvantage I feel that the AG is in a position of. AG can't talk publicly about a case that is in litigation before the court because ACLU and all the other ones that are lined up are going to take whatever word they say and potentially be able to use it or twist it in the court case.
That's what they've said. Yes, that's right.
You know, the one thing when you look at all the other Republican AGs around the nation, the question is who is lined up pushing this and who is lined up trying to stop this. I haven't heard a lot out of the other Republican AGs. I know in Virginia, they were trying to get it to be stopped out there too, as far as passing any new legislation.
Right.
I know in the letter that I drafted that's up on the website, you drafted a letter. You know, I consulted with multiple attorneys.
Right.
Pro-life.
Sure.
But I already know what the other one's saying. But the pro-life attorneys, as far as the reasoning or the rationale for why it shouldn't go forward at this time. Your conclusions that you have drawn based on family counsel's individual position or based on consultation with multiple people?
Lots of consultation with lots of people. And I mentioned the attorneys that we've spoken with, but Kim, stop and think. Let's just take the Texas style bill that, you know, has had some results in Texas. Have you heard National Right to Life get out and beat the drum and say, we got to pass this all over the country? No. Have you heard the Alliance Defending Freedom, who we look to a whole bunch? Have you heard them beating the drum for this Texas law? No. Have you heard Americans United for Life, one of the other leading national pro-life organizations? Are they beating the drum? Have they called you as a lawmaker and said, I sure hope you'll pass the Texas bill? No. They are very, very quiet on this issue. And what you'll hear from them is we don't oppose the Texas style bill. But if they believed that this was a really good law, they would be on, your phone would have rung by now. And some of those national groups would have said, we sure do hope you'll pass this. And so their lack of support for the Texas bill is something we ought to pay attention to.
You know, there's a annual report that comes out, put out by the health department, that tells the number of abortions that occur in the state. I know one of the arguments for why we need to do it is because of all the people coming from other states. I think I heard in testimony the other day, but a lot of them are also going to Louisiana and other states.
Sure.
And not coming here. We won't really know a true number until that report comes out, which will be late summer, which will be right after the Supreme Court rules on the case. If the Supreme Court does it by then. Everybody's hoping they'll do it by then, but we don't know for sure they'll do it by then.
But see, Kim, it's also important to note that the best legal experts that I know of have told me if we pass the Texas law, it's not going to stop abortions in Arkansas. It's not going to stop them. It'll be enjoined. It'll be stopped by Judge Baker. It'll be appealed to the Eighth Circuit, and they will put it on hold until there's a ruling in the Dobbs case this summer. So as far, I've told people, I've said all the effort would be for very little, if any, gain that I can see.
So what do you say when people make the statement, we can save one baby? Because that's one that's out there. I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Well, if I thought that that was true, then I would say, let's do this. Let's try this. I don't believe that's true, Kim. I really don't believe it's true, because if this law is never allowed to go into effect, it won't save any. You know what would save some babies, though, right now that the legislature could do? And I don't want to get us too far into this, but if you guys would approve some funding for these pregnancy centers out here that are working and trying to save lives every day, I mean, if they had more resources, I believe you would see some lives saved between now and as soon as the money could get to those centers. And I know you have a really good center down in your district, and I believe they do excellent work. But imagine if they had more resources, how good they could do.
You've been accused of the rumor. I heard it through the paper. The rumor
You
is
heard
you're
it
going to
through
make
the
money off.
grapevine, or
Yeah, I
the-
heard it through the grapevine. You're going to make money off this deal.
Do I look like a pregnancy center?
You don't even,
I'm not a
you don't even
pregnancy.
look pregnant.
I'm not a pregnancy center. The Capitol is full of gossip. It's full of gossip. You know that. And anyone who says that is repeating gossip. And it's just, that's all it is. And so we've been trying to get some funding for these centers for about 3 years now. And I think we may be pretty close to it. And I think people that don't want them to get funded are sowing these seeds of gossip behind the scenes to try to spoil that for them.
Why would we not want to fund them?
Well, if you're pro-abortion, you don't want those centers to succeed.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's some pro-life people out here that have picked up that pro-abortion type stuff, and they're repeating it. And it just baffles me that they would do that. But all that said, those centers do really good work. They're going to reduce the demand for abortion. And Kim, if we can reduce the demand for abortion, then we've solved a whole bunch of problems. Most of these girls don't really want to go get an abortion. They feel like they have no other way out. Maybe they're single, they're in their early 20s, they've already got some kids, they're pregnant, and they don't know what to do, and so they run to the abortion clinic. And if we can strengthen these pregnancy centers, of which there are about 45 around the state, and help them do their good work better and more of it, and if we can reduce that demand, then we're doing a really good thing. And shame on anybody that would try to spoil that for the ones that want to do good with this money. And shame on anybody that would allege that somehow we're going to get some kind of cut out of this. I'm not a pregnancy center. There's nothing in it for us except seeing abortion go down.
My intent is to have them on the show and talk about the pregnancy centers.
That'd be a
what they
great
do.
show. Most people don't know the amazing work that they do. They are amazing people.
Well, and most people probably don't realize they're on the front line.
Boy, they are.
As far as what they do and the positive things that they do and the
Yeah.
stories,
Yeah.
that can be shared.
Yeah.
The moving forward from here, we've got, hopefully we only got about another week of the fiscal session. We can go longer.
Can you end it sooner?
Well, depending on what resolutions get brought up, because there's still some hanging out there. Let's be realistic and everything. There's still some hanging out there. But moving forward from here, as far as what message would you want to send moving forward from here?
Well, I would say that we are on the verge of victory. I don't know how big the victory will be, but I was even talking with a very liberal Democrat attorney just a few minutes ago, and he said, I think Roe v. Wade's going to be dialed way back. They're going to trim it way back. And he said it might be reversed. And if liberal Democrat attorneys are saying Roe may go, then I think there's something there. Now, in the meantime, we need to understand that if Roe gets reversed, that it'll be the mother of all battles right here in Arkansas and everywhere else, because the pro-abortion forces, they're not going to lay down and run up the white flag. They're going to take it to court. They're going to try to get every legal maneuver they can muster. So we need to have as clean a case as possible when our attorney general fights those guys in the Eighth Circuit. And I believe we've given them those tools. And they have said to me privately, please don't mess this up. We can fight and we can win right now. Don't mess it up.
The one thing that's been talked about is that even with the bills that we have on the books, that's where they would begin their fight, by trying to eliminate what we've got.
Right.
Which would require it, it would require either let them fight it out, and who knows how long that's going to take. And then it'll end up going, do you see it going right back up to Supreme Court? Take the one, for example, that's on the books that if Roe v. versus Wade is reversed, comes back to the state, we've got the bill on the books that will automatically do away with abortion. I could see being sued over that for multiple reasons.
Oh, sure. And see, here's what I would hope.
And that's not because it's a bad bill.
No.
It's just because of what they do.
Yeah. But if the court is worth anything, which I believe the Eighth Circuit is, they might say, you know what, we'll let litigation over the Arkansas abortion law go forward, but for now, let's enforce it. You see what I mean? They could say, for now, we're going to enforce this while the litigation goes on. That's what the Fifth Circuit did with that Texas law. But again, we have no indication that the Eighth Circuit would do that with the Texas law, but they might if the Supreme Court overturns Roe and the bad guys challenge, then the court might say, well, we'll let you take it to court, but we're going to enforce it for now.
I don't know. So I'm asking, do you know how many other states have the bill that we have that abortion is made illegal immediately?
I'm going to just give you a guess. I'd say about a dozen. Some have a law that, like, we have two, actually. So we're ahead of the game. One's a trigger law that says if Roe is reversed, abortion is illegal. The other one just says abortion's illegal already. We have have those, and they're almost identical, except one's the trigger. It's not being enforced right now. An interesting little twist on this, the bad guys have challenged the total ban on abortions, but they've not challenged the trigger law. Trigger law is not in court right now. It's just sitting there waiting to go off if Roe is reversed. So that's a little interesting legal twist there for people that may understand the legalities of some of this.
Well, some have said that the trigger law, I believe I'm right on this, the trigger law, that's the one that would probably get challenged because it was a bill that was passed prior to action being in place, and that would be the grounds that they would sue. And here's the deal. If I got 3 lawyers in this room, I got 3 different opinions.
You got 5 different opinions.
I got 5 different, and that's I'm not throwing down on you lawyers, okay? I'm just saying that's the nature of the beast, the nature of the challenge, that they're not all going to agree. Just like we don't necessarily agree, on the methodology that we're going about trying to address the problem,
right?
But that's the one thing that I've heard is that's where they would hit us is because the law was drafted on the basis of something that had not yet occurred. And depending on which lawyer you talk to would say, yeah, that's right. Or the other one would say, no, that's not going to happen.
And to circle back, that's why we have said, let's not do any more abortion legislation at this time. Not right now. That doesn't mean not ever. In fact, we'll probably need some come summer once the court rules. I don't know what it'll be yet. But see, I wish people would hear me. When I say not right now, they think, oh, you're against our bills. And that's not true. It's just saying it's not the right time to do this. Not right now. We don't need to do it now.
Wisdom in waiting.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. What else you want to say about it?
Well, so here's the other thing we need to think about is the fact that Arkansas is the most pro-life state in the nation. If we need to pass more pro-life bills after this Dobbs ruling comes down this summer, Kim, don't you think we've got the votes to pass more pro-life bills in the General Assembly?
I don't want to speak on behalf of anybody, but I have pretty reasonable confidence that once Roe versus Wade is returned to the state, whatever we have to do to capitalize on that, we'll be back in for a special session to deal with the reaction of the court and whatever we got to do to finalize this thing.
And I've even heard the governor say we'll probably need a special session to deal with the aftermath of that decision and to do whatever good legislation we need to do. These abortion bills, believe it or not, Kim, some of the easiest bills to pass in the last 2 legislative sessions have been regulations on abortion. See, they've been the easiest ones to pass because y'all are so pro-life.
Well, and that's a subject to talk about in the limited time we got left. Always before, with the exception of the Democrats, and I just kind of park them over there when it comes to pro-life because we know, and I do know that there have been a few votes cast by some Democrats in favor, and I commend them. Those that did, they put themselves out there on the limb. They did it, okay?
Right.
But for the most part, you can just park them over here.
Right.
Okay. Always before, in my recollection, you straighten me out if I'm wrong, always before, we've had at least what seems like 90% plus agreement among the conservative Republicans.
Yes.
Among Republicans,
Yes.
where
Yes.
you can even say whatever
Yes.
Republican, that we have always had about 90% agreement in our historical fight on
Yes.
this.
Yes. And that's why I've said, used to, I mean, at my office, there are about 5 of us that actually go to the Capitol and we work on bills. I give the pro-life bills to people like Aaron, who hasn't lobbied much, because they're easy. That's amazing. Used to, I had to be out there with every ounce of energy and experience I could muster just to get a pro-life bill passed. We went 10 years trying to pass a bill out there back in the day. Now, you guys passed, I think, one count said 14 pro-life bills this past session. The other said maybe as high as 20. And because you are so pro-life, those bills just roll right on through. And that's a good thing. We ought to celebrate. And it grieves me when I see lawmakers out there now calling one another not pro-life. Senator Hammer, as far as I know, you have voted 44 times for pro-life bills and never once voted against one. I don't know how you could say that. I mean, that's as pro-life as a person could be, I believe.
I think about the scripture, God's not the author of confusion.
Well, that's true. That is true.
And I've got to wonder, when it comes to the debate on all of this, if God is not the author of confusion, either one side is really confused on this matter,
Mm-hmm.
or it's Satan's attempt to divide those that have stood unified for 90+% of the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, there are other good people out there just like you. 44 pro-life bills have been passed in the last 10 years by the General Assembly, and they have voted for every single one of those good bills every time, every single time. If a basketball team was 44-0, you'd say that's a pretty good team.
But they only talk about the one loss.
Maybe so.
Yep. Well, the one area we'll agree to disagree on. And
Right.
at the end of the day, at the end of the day, and the end of the day may come in June,
Mm-hmm.
although it won't. We're going to be in this battle for the rest of our life, as long
Mhm.
as we're on earth, because there's always going to be those that want to see abortion
Right.
alive and well.
That's right.
So let's not kid ourselves, just because whatever happens in this moment of time that we're living, it's going to go beyond the end of this session. It's going to go beyond the Roe versus Wade.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I would hope is that long after the discussion is said and done, that we can be unified to move on and
Mhm.
and fight the cause.
Christians have been fighting the killing of babies for over 2,000 years. We're just the latest chapter in that battle.
I would take it back further than that, because I think about what the Pharaoh did.
There you go.
And
But you think about it. It's as old as the Bible. That's what God's people do. We fight the killing of children. And we've done it for however long you want to look back.
we'll see how next week plays out with regards to whether it gets to be heard in committee or whether it doesn't. At the end of the day, one thing about it, if we all stand side by side, the other side will win. So,
Absolutely.
okay, we're at the end of coming up on the end of the show. I want to give you a couple quick announcements to remind you that Monday night, 5:30 to 6:30, if you want to come on down to Benton, myself, Representative Lanny Fight, I've got a special guest coming in too, which is Senator Matt Pitch, running for the state treasurer position. He serves with me in the Senate chamber. You can come on by, meet and greet if you want to, from 5:30 to 6:30. It's a drop-in event. You don't have to stay the whole time. We'll have a few light refreshments, but don't expect any steak or any major meal. It's an opportunity for you to just come by and to visit with us if you'd like. I'd encourage you to go up to the website, thekimhammershow.com. You can leave comments, or you can see articles. We try to keep current things of interest up there. If you would, help spread the word on that. And as always, thank you for listening. Hope you have a great rest of the Saturday. Jerry, thank you for coming in and having a conversation about what's going on at the Capitol, and we'll see you around the halls there. Y'all have a great day.